Hey, Prairie Plant Girl here. I just wanted to do a video for you today to show you what we do up here in the prairies to get our summer flowering bulbs ready. We need to pot them up before it's warm enough to have them outside, and we also bring them indoors for the winter so they don't freeze. So I just first wanted to show you, these are my cannas, and this is what I had done with them just to store them over the winter. I just have a mix here. It's mostly peat moss with some vermiculite. Just holds the moisture but doesn't keep them, it's just damp, it's not wet, and it actually dries out a little bit over the winter, so you just have to keep poking in and having a look and give it a little spray once in a while if you need to. I keep them, just above freezing. You don't want them to get over, I'd say, 10-12 degrees Celsius, but you definitely don't want them to freeze. That's the main goal through the winter. So this is what they look like when you take them out of winter storage. There's lots of old roots, they're brown, they're just the old roots, so you don't really need to worry about them. They have the stems attached. I just cut them down here just so you could have a better look at the bulb on this one. So you can see the bulb, it's not mushy, it's nice and firm. I can't really squeeze it in or anything. And they'll have some little growing points starting on them. I don't know if you can see that one there, that's a nice one. So you want to start with a good sized bulb so that you have flowers in the summer. Now these need to get planted up about 8 weeks before they get planted out, and you don't want to put them outside until it's not going to freeze at night anymore. So check with your local garden center or your local egg center and find out what your last frost-free date is, and plan to put them out probably even a week after that, because you really don't want them to get nipped by the frost. So what I do to plant them up, just to start them indoors, I don't want them in my big outdoor pots yet, so I'll just get a can that I've used from the garden center, gotten something in before. So I'll just take that can and I'll just put a regular coffee filter in the bottom of it. And that's just to keep the soil from falling out the bottom, but it lets the water get out because you don't want them to get too wet. So then I'm just going to put some soil in there, and I'll fill it about halfway. And it's just regular potting soil, you don't need anything special. You could put some compost in there if you wanted, just to feed them a little bit, but when I'm starting them inside, I make my own compost, so I don't like to have that in the house just in case, there's anything overwintered in there. I want to make sure I don't invite any little friends in the house. So then you just take the bulb, and this, where all the roots are coming out and it's a little bit flatter, that's your bottom. So you just put it in, and it'll be a little bit tight. You just set it in there nice and firm, so you can see that there, the points are coming up. It's down in the soil. And you're just going to cover it up. You only want about 5 centimeters, maybe 2 inches of soil on top. They don't want to be super deep. So we're just going to put a little bit more soil on there. And now I'm not pushing real hard because I don't want to break those growing buds. But I'm just giving a little tamp down because you don't want any air pockets in there. That'll promote rot. And then I'm just going to stick a tag in there so I remember what I put in this pot later on. So you don't want to give them a whole huge amount of water right to begin with. I like to let them kind of get settled in, and then I will just come along like in a week or so. You might even see growth poking up, and give them a little bit of water just to get it just damp. And then we're just going to leave it, keeping it just slightly damp until they're really growing. Once they're growing, they're going to need a lot more water in a pot like this, and they're going to need light. So you need a nice bright, warm place in the house. You could put it by a nice south-facing or west-facing window, or you could put them under grow lights. That's probably where mine will go. But until they're showing growth, you really just need them somewhere warm. So that's the canna. Now I also have a nice big healthy dahlia here, and I had it stored in a different box, but this is exactly the same way as the canna was. And again, you can see it's a nice healthy bulb, tuber is what they actually are. They're more like a potato in some ways. So they get all these are storage units. They're just gonna feed the roots to grow the dahlia. So there's lots of dirt in there, and that's fine because it keeps the air pockets from growing. I'm just feeling around to make sure there's nothing that's soft or mushy in here, because if there is, then you would want to cut that out and maybe put a little bit of cinnamon's a great fungicide that you can use, just to put on the cut part, and just leave it to dry for a couple of days if you have anything you have to cut off. Is that with all bulbs, because you want it to heal up so you don't have it in wet dirt promoting rot. So this one looks really good, and it's sometimes hard to tell with a dahlia which way you want to put it, but I always kind of look, this is an old stem here, this is an old stem here, and here's a bunch here. So I'm going to try and get those going upright in my pot as much as possible. But I find with bulbs, most of the time, they're going to figure their way out anyways, so if you're not sure, just stick it sideways if you think you know the top and bottom but don't know which is which, or just plunk it in there, they'll figure their way out. So same thing, I just stuck a coffee filter in the bottom of this pot. It's just an old can from the garden center. And I'm going to fill it up. Again, probably about halfway. Tap it down. You don't want it super compact, but you just want to make sure you don't have any air spaces in there. Okay, so find those points there. Oh, got a bit too much dirt. Just take some out here. Now dahlias, I find if you just cover them with soil to start, and as they start to grow, you can add more soil. Just make sure if there's any leaves developing on the stems that are going to get covered with soil, that you just trim those leaves off so they don't rot under the soil and start some bacterial or rot kind of going on down there. But I'm just kind of poking the dirt down here just gently around those bulbous parts there. I'm just going to put just enough on there just to get them covered, and then that's all I really want on the dahlia for now. Like I said, as it starts to grow, I'll come along and cover it up more, and this one won't last very long. This is the biggest pot I had. This dahlia has really grown, so it may have to go in its permanent container sooner than I'd like, but makes it easier to manage in the house for a while anyway. So again, this is probably going to be 6 to 8 weeks at least before your last frost date that you want to get these started. Just keep them nice and warm, and once they start to grow, get some light on them and keep them watered. Dahlias like to drink a lot, so once they get growing, they're going to need a good amount of moisture every week. Probably twice a week you'll be watering them if it gets really hot every day in the summer. And they like a nice sunny spot, but they prefer to have in a hot area a little bit of shade in the afternoon. If you can get a spot like that where they're getting lots of sun most of the day, but in the hottest part of the day, if they can have a little bit of shade, they're going to thank you for that. The canna, it just likes a nice hot, dry, well, not dry, like it can hot, windy, it can handle some pretty extreme weather, but again, you're going to want to make sure that you keep it kind of averagely moist. But they're both great plants as long as you pay attention to them. Don't forget about them outside. They'll give you lots of blooms and lots of impact in your garden this summer. So why don't you go to your local garden center or big box store, and you can easily pick these up for a couple of bucks and pot some up, get them started so you have some nice blooms this summer. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.